The story in the Isle of Siptah is told through lorestones, similar to the ones in the exiled lands. They are found at the end of each vault, and they are recordings created by the elder races. These races are serpentmen, harpies, fishmen, batdemons, demonspiders, gremlins, and werevolves. However, when entering one of these vaults and encountering these creatures, they are but a shadow of their former glory. How come these creatures used to rule the earth with humans as their slaves? They are like wild animals, not the kind of being that could build civilizations. In this video, I'll go through all these history recordings, and we will be able to piece together the story. The first recording tells the story of the demonspiders fleeing after a human slave uprising. The war was lost. Our slaves rose up, hearts hardened in the forge of servitude, and they slaughtered us. Our gods were silent, so we fled. We did not know whether we would ever find safety again. The relentless savagery of humans is something we had observed over long years as their masters. They will not stop searching for us. They would come to end up in what would later be named the Isle of Siptah, where the other 6 races would be in the same position, fleeing from human genocide. Because it was not only the demonspiders that were enslaving humans, it would seem like all the 7 races were part of the war that was told in the first cutscene. The second recording is told by the batdemons, and explains a crucial part about the tower. It is not in our nature to cooperate, but extinction awakens new instincts. The mighty messenger brought us the words of our gods, a path to regroup and regrow, to hide us from the vengeance of mankind, a container for our starry wisdom. The tower in the middle of the Isle of Siptah would create a malestorm that protected the island from human invasion. The 7 elder races could also sacrifice humans to the tower in exchange for arcane knowledge. They would even be able to see into the future, because the forces the tower dealt with were not of this world. Speaking of not of this world, this is where I'm convinced that the Giant Kings were allied with the 7 elder races. The same statue that can be seen outside the tower in the Isle of Siptah is also by the Tower of Bats, and the lore stone by the Tower of Bats speaks of a messenger, just like the recording by the batdemons.
Nightly, the star dreamers search the heavens for their wisdom, and at midnight, a moonbeam messenger carries the whispered dreaming back to the Warmaker, the Archivist, and the Priest King. Thus is our future read from the heavens and engraved on this earth. Your service here will bring you much honor.
In many ways, the 8 races lived peacefully together, but the snakemen started fearing their own extinction. Their recording says this. For the longest time, we thought we were alone, and we despaired. The life cycle of our kind is long, but conditions on the island were such that none of our offspring could come to term. We resigned ourselves to a long, slow death. But then others of our kind made contact from the mainland. They had made a pact for our safety and secrecy, hidden beneath a volcano in the lands of the Giant Kings. They had birthed a crèche of young. We will go to them. We will ensure the survival of our species. It was not the tower that contained the powerful magic, creating the maelstrom and seeing into the future, but a stone which you might have heard of. It might even have been in your possession. It is called the Shining Trihepsohedron. We took it from the blackest room at the top of the tower, an offering to buy us passage and prestige. Some of us were left behind to allay suspicions. The consequences would be dire, but the survival of our species was paramount. The snakes stole the trihipsohedron, which is why you can find it in the exiled lands when killing a serpentman boss. They could have left without the stone and left their allies with a chance to survive against the humans, but their greed would not let them leave their treasure behind. When reading the flavor text about the trihipsohedron, you can see an even darker side of the serpentmen. The serpentmen of Valusia were in possession of this object, and how they came to be living beneath the volcano in the exiled lands is a mystery. Not anymore. It was too late for the serpentmen, a degenerate and dying race, lacking the genetic diversity to continue. They found themselves coupling with snakes and lesser reptiles in the hope of preserving their species. But as time passed, they lost all hope of survival and instead preyed for bitter revenge upon the other races. They crafted a staff with their ancient magics and summoned a presence via the trihipsohedron to inhabit the staff and lead the giant kings to their downfall. If they must die, they will take as many with them as possible, and most especially the cursed children of humankind.
Oh, look at this place! I haven't seen such a mess since the fall of Valusia! And look! The Archivist! Oh, sorry looking shade that he is!
The staff that was created was evil, with only destruction in mind, but it was also clever and knew how to win the Giant King's trust. The staff advised the war maker Clow to summon a sandstorm to fight the Lemurians that were residing in the jungle, but instead, the sandstorm destroyed the Giant King's cities. The Giant Kings, who had sheltered the Serpentmen out of the goodness of their hearts, were now all dead because the Serpentmen gave them the staff. They gave it to them because they just wanted to see the world burn. If they would go extinct, so would everyone else. Or could there be more to it? Here's a different theory. I don't think the Serpentmen really understood the power of the trihipsohedron. I think the trihipsohedron was like the ring in the Lord of the Rings. It corrupted them and made them go crazy, made them evil, paranoid. The staff of the triumvirate was created by the trihipsohedron, but I think the destruction by the stone was started long before the staff was created. The next part of the story tells of a harder time on the Isle of Siptah, now that the elder races no longer has the trihipsohedron. There was a night when our sacrifices stopped working, when the gods stopped answering our prayers. The tower was silent, the summoning sorceress went unanswered. A council was called, but not all the elder races were there. The treacherous serpentmen were gone, taking our protection and our treasure with them. Our fragile alliance was broken. Part of the power of the trihipsohedron was to see the future. Perhaps being able to do that was one of the things that made the otherwise uncooperative races cooperate. Now they had no protection, no powers, and the serpentmen had left them. This led to a civil war. It was a war such as we had not experienced in centuries. Wolfman against harpy, against demon. We had lived in fear and isolation for so long, our pent-up rage burst forth in a flood. Battle washed over the island. There was no thought of truce, only the shrieks and cries of blood and madness. The next lore stone explains how the situation got even worse. But we had all of us forgotten our ancient foe. While we had remained exiled on our island, protected by our malestorm of magic, the humans had been growing and spreading on the mainland. With our protection gone, the humans found us again, and despite the passage of years, their hatred burned bright. A fleet arrived at the island, and the humans began to take their long-delayed vengeance. We were not prepared. Our bearing with each other had left us weakened, and the humans were full of fresh fury and anger. They drove us back across the island, and we abandoned our foolish civil war and reunited against the greater threat. In desperation, we sought to save ourselves. The strategy to save themselves would be to try to recreate the Trahipsahedron. The magic that once protected them was no longer working, but perhaps that could change. This would be the downfall of the 7 elder races. In our desperation, we sought to replace that which had been stolen. We made contact with the entities of Yuggoth, and under their guidance, we sought to recreate the angles of the original. It took almost all our power and strength, but at last it was done, and the room at the top of the tower was empty no more. Our gambit worked. The completed tower was all that the gods had promised, a shroud that could be cast around the island to protect and defend, a conduit to provide us with the victuals to which we had grown accustomed. We were safe, and we were seated. Thanks to the again functioning tower, after the recreation of the Trahipsahedron, the elder races won the war against the humans. And once again, the humans were enslaved, used as human sacrifice, used for labor. Some of the humans would betray their own kind, and this can be read about on the flavor text, on the slave-forged armor. Some humans are traitors to their kind. When the elder races ruled the earth, these men and women willingly worked for the enemy, in return for better conditions for them and their families. Often, they were used as guardians on the sacrificial temples. Guardian armor was designed to intimidate other humans and to break their will as they were marched to their deaths. The world is a harsh and unforgiving place, and humans were forged in this fire. When they turned against their former masters, they did not spare the guardians. From this text, it sounds like this was a lot earlier in time actually, because on the timeline right now, the elder races are anything but the rulers of the earth. The island is actually their last hiding spot. The humans have hunted them down and killed every one of the elder races except the ones that are hiding on the island. The ones that are hiding on the island cannot leave because the humans will find them and kill them all. And the reason why the humans are thirsty for vengeance is because of the situation that the armor is describing, something that happened thousands of years ago. But for now, the elder races are safe on the island, and thanks to the humans trying to invade the island recently, they have stocked up on some slaves now. As the threat of extinction faded, so too did our cooperation. The tower worked, and we each had access to its bounty. As centuries passed, we reverted to old ways and habitats. Each of us made a home on the island. Our winged allied claimed the high places. Our lupine brethren found solace in the rolling hills. Our demonic friends stayed close to the tower. And the serpentmen? Who knows which dark crevice they slithered into. It was great for a time, thanks to the recreated Trahipsahedron. But there was a catch that nobody could foresee. Because demons would appear from nowhere. The entities of the outer dark had deceived us. Our recreation had a fatal flaw. The malestorm it conjured was unstable, tearing the stones and trees off the island, creating gaping holes in our reality. The things that emerged did not care for our war or our survival. There was just darkness and a nameless hunger. Since we know that the Giant Kings were allied with the 7 elder races, it is a good theory to assume that the recreation of the Trihipsoidon could have been orchestrated by the staff of the Triumvirate. It seems like a scheme typical of the staff. It looks like it's gonna work, the staff is your ally, but then there's a terrible catch to it. And the catch was terrible. Even as the humans were destroyed, we sought a final refuge. We used our sorcerer's knowledge to construct giant walls, places of refuge where we could escape the storm. We knew then that we were building our tombs, that our children would never see the light of day, but what choice did we have? Let this serve as a last record, an archive for the elder races that once ruled this world. Treachery and darkness were our last supper. Blood and tears our wine. We are the last. We are exiles from the world itself. The elder races had no choice but to create 14 vaults, 2 for each race. In the vaults, they would forever be locked away from the terror of the malestorm and the demons that came through. And they couldn't escape the island, because humans would kill them on sight. The races, being safe in their walls over thousands of years, experienced a downfall in their evolution. They were so safe that nature did not provide the younger generations with strong genes. This is why the creatures that you can see in the vaults are devolved into this form. Before they devolved into what they are now, they did research to understand the demons from the Maelstrom. This research can be found in the chest right behind their recordings. It will help you defeat them, and it reads as follows. When the Maelstrom grew out of control, shimmering across the multiverse and summoning creatures from beyond this world, the elder races retreated to their vaults. This voluntary exile gave them time to research and prepare weapons with which to fight the things from beyond. This sigil is the result of this research. Absorbing its sorcery causes a displacement of reality around a living being. Because they are both here and there at the same time, they can cause damage to the things from beyond. Using this sigil will allow a person to damage the creatures of the Maelstrom. A few years before the Exiles washes up on the shore by a storm, a wizard named Siptah claims the island for his own, and he names it after himself. He manages to control the Maelstrom and demands payment for passing ships. "Pay me, and I'll prevent your ship from sinking from the storm," he says.
During the year of the Cobra, a prisoner captured by unknown means was to be transported to the exiled lands until fate intervenes.
The ship that carried you must have thought he was still alive and granting safe passage, but Siptah is now dead, and the Maelstrom crushes the ship that was supposed to take you to the exiled land. So here you are, ready to explore the Isle of Siptah. The rest of the story is up to us to write. Perhaps you can take on what the elder races could not. With the discoveries of the old races, perhaps we stand a chance, especially if we consult with our buddy, the staff of the Triumvirate.
Just don't believe anything he says about me.